This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everybody.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week we have, 8. My God, we've got 8 films.
Shitloads.
An absolute ton. Some of these are left over from last week, but even so, we're going to kick off with the new Japanese Yakuza thriller, Bad City. Then we have Next Exit and a new version of the Three Musketeers. Yes, another one. Then we're down to the Mexican border for the Nameless Days, and then popping across to the Emerald Isle for the Irish Mob. Then we're down in France for the Condor's Nest, and where are we for Dead Bride? That's the Italian, wasn't it? Yeah, off to Italy for Dead Bride, and believe it or not, down to Australia for The Possessed. And then why not? Yeah, let's hop across to Hong Kong for our DTV short shot, which is Dragon Cop, and then God knows where we are for our DTV throwback, Andron. So plenty to be getting on with tonight, so we better crack on. Our first review then is Bad City. Keiko City is plagued with poverty and crime. When a corrupt businessman decides to run for mayor and starts eliminating opponents from the rival mafia, a former police captain serving time for murder is secretly released and put in charge of a special task force to arrest him. Now, Steve, we were meant to review this last week for our previous show, but at the time I was the only one who actually had a chance to see it. How glad are you that we actually held off for a week?
Not ecstatic. It was enjoyable. It was okay. I'm getting the idea that you enjoyed it more than me.
I think you may be right. Yes.
Yeah. It was okay. It was just to me, it was a little bit confusing. And I weren't sure who was double crossing who, or, the political machinations of the main guy, the main villain, or what he was trying to do, and then the old woman, I didn't have a clue where she really came from or what she was doing in it. And I just found it a bit confusing, but I mean, it was shot well, acted well, just didn't really grab me as much as I thought it was going to.
That's a shame. That's a shame. I was hoping you'd love it. I absolutely adore this film. So just for info, the old woman, she's head of the Korean mafia gang that's helping these guys out, but they get betrayed by the main guy, whose henchman, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's Tak Sakaguchi, the guy with the fish knife, who we see right at the beginning, just carving up people, and then he's sort of one of the main antagonists. This is actually the most straightforward sort of Japanese Yakuza film I've seen for a while. What's the other one? Hell Dogs, which is on Netflix at the moment, is also worth checking out, but is a little bit more convoluted than this. But this is the age-old trope of we're putting a team together. There's mismatched people who are going to be the ones to take them down, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
Again, I thought some of the tones were a bit off as well. I mean, the coppers get thrown together. They just seemed like comedy characters to me. They didn't seem that they were in the right film until
to begin with. When they're first introduced, you're absolutely right. When they're first introduced, it does seem like, are we meant to be taking these people seriously? Because you got the young girl who's the rookie, and sort of blatant sexism that she's having to put up with, and then the two main cops on a team, so that that you got the fat guy and the thin guy, and you think they come across as just like the most bumbling. You're not sure if you're meant to take them seriously until that first fight when they run into the Korean guys. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, and even she sort of like she takes out one of them quite succinctly. But then you get that other fight in the middle of the film, where in the fish market when they get sort of like trapped, and the thin guy. I've no idea who he is, but he was brilliant. That scene was absolutely superb.
To be fair, even like the older captain, the guy who gets released.
Oh God, he's tough as nails.
I won't mess with him down a dark alley. You know what I mean? He's proper kicking some ass, and and his voice as well. He sounds like he smokes about 60 a day, which I didn't really expect to come out of him.
It's it is very pulpy. It is it's almost out of a comic book kind of thing. It's not like a serious police procedural. It's
no.
There is an element of fun. There's lots of brawling and stuff going on. All these sort of hardball characters. I mean, I must admit, some of the sort of machinations of this wheeling and dealing that was going on, it is sort of a bit beyond me. I think it took a while to understand who one of the characters is, the guy with the glasses, and how he fit between the two.
Still
that sort of thing. But even so, you can sort of gloss over it a bit and just sort of I mean, the fighting style in this film is quite unique because it seems to use a lot of either judo or jiu-jitsu, because there's a lot of like throws and holds and sort of grapples and things going on, but it is incredibly fluid at the same time. It's not like two people just like holding on to each other. It is so fluid, and people are being attacked from all sides and having to sort of squirm out of the way and stuff. It is it is very modern, but it's but at the same time, you can see the techniques are drilled into them, and I was really impressed with it, I have to say.
Like I say, it was not terrible. It was enjoyable, but not as, I didn't find it as enthralling as you did, to be fair.
This is a film. I mean, we watched a lot of films this week, and some of them are very good. But even so, every time I was watching something, I was like, I really want to watch Mad City again. Bad City again. I believe 101 Films are only releasing this online, so it's an online sort of VOD download. But even so, this is a film I need in my collection. On that note, how are you going to score it, Steve?
I'll give it a 7.
I'm giving this an 8. So a 7 and 8 for Bad City. We do recommend you go check this out. Our next review is Next Exit. A research scientist who makes headlines proving she can track people after death, and her radical scientific study is looking for volunteers for a pain-free passing to the afterlife. Rose sees a way out, and Teddy sees his chance to finally make it. When fate has the two strangers sharing a car rental, they set out on a lengthy road trip to the unknown. I think the central premise of this is a bit flawed. In that, we can prove ghosts exist, or we can prove there's life after death. So we're looking for volunteers to die, just so we can sort of solidify our results. It's a bit strange, but that doesn't sort of detract much from the film itself, because it is a very interesting film. It's a good sort of character study. This sort of road trip with these sort of two characters, one of which is the sheriff from Midnight Mass,
Yep.
and other Mickey Flanagan stuff. Not Mickey Flanagan, he's a comedian. Mike Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan.
Stuff. Mike Flanagan, not Mickey Flanagan. He was only going out.
Yeah.
Yes, it is pretty good, and so much so, you get into the characters so much so that when they get to that inevitable bit, of are they actually going to go through what they're going to do? It is sort of, it does tug the heartstrings a bit. How do you get on with this one, Steve?
It's a bit not slow, but yeah, well, no, it is. It's actually quite a slow pace, to be fair. But the characters pull you through, the charm. I mean, I'm gonna mash his name up, Rahul Kohli.
Yeah, I'm glad you had to go first before me.
Yeah,
but
thanks,
you're
you
right.
bastard.
Yeah,
I like him anyway.
Kohli,
I thought
yes.
he's great. He's great in Midnight Mass, and is it Ilhouse? Is he? Or is it the second one? It's the other one, isn't it? I can't remember what the other one is. Anyway,
Bly Manor.
Bly Manor, that's the one.
Yeah, Bly Manor.
And he's really funny on Twitter as well. He's absolutely hilarious on Twitter. So I'll give him a pass. I like him anyway. But also Rose as well, Katie Parker. I think they're both really good together. And it's more if it was just them traveling, it'd be a bit more successful. I think what you say, the central conceit is a bit not daft, but just doesn't weigh up, if you know what I mean. It's that to me is the big flaw of the film, to be fair. And I was a bit gutted with Karen Gillan because she's only in it for about 2 or 3 scenes.
Yeah,
and it's like video.
Yeah, you're saying in a second hand, basically.
Yeah. And I was a bit gutted about that, to be fair. And but it moves along. It's one of them. As soon as you get in the first 5 minutes, you know what's going to happen. I mean, it's not. It's signposted. It's Chekhov's gun. It's everything. You know what's going to happen. But it does do it effectively, and it's all right. I mean, I was quite surprised that the writer-director is also Mally Elfman, is Danny Elfman's daughter.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm presuming she's also the daughter of Thingy. What's his wife called now? Thingy Fonda. Out of what's she called? Bridget Fonda. That's
right.
the one.
Oh my God! Didn't realize she married him.
Well, I know they were together. They might not be now, but
Cool. How are you going to score this one?
No, stepdaughter Bridget Fonda. I'm gonna again. I think I'll give it a 7.
Yeah, I think this one's a 7. It's. I went into this one a bit like, ugh. I think it's going to be one of those. But as I said, the whole bit, when the car breaks down and stuff like that, it was just really, really, really good sort of dry humor. Sort of, really, really did like it a lot. And as I said, you get to the end when they actually are they going to go through with what they originally planned, or have they changed each other's mind? And it does sort of leave you on the edge of your seat a bit. So yeah, definitely a 7 out of 10. So it's 2 7s for Next Exit. Go check it out. Our next review is The Three Musketeers. In this adaptation of Alexander Dumas' classic, young D'Artagnan travels to Paris to join the Musketeers and must help uncover a conspiracy to assassinate the young king. So there's a French production of The Three Musketeers due out this year. In fact, they're doing 2 versions or 2 halves of the story, just like the Richard Lester one. So this has come out a little ahead of that, and overall, it's not too bad. I've seen worse, I must admit. I suppose the most controversial, or people are going to see as the most controversial part of this, is the casting of D'Artagnan, Rich.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a black D'Artagnan before, and the fact that he's black isn't referenced in any way. I don't think at any point in the film, if I recall correctly. So, which I think it probably would do if it was accurate of the time, but hard to say.
This is interesting because Dumas himself was black.
Interesting.
So,
I did not know that.
Yeah, any fan of Quentin Tarantino might remember this fact from Django Unchained, because it's something Christopher Waltz came up with. But I did check.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I've only seen it once, so I don't remember.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that sort of stuck with me. But yes, so Dumas himself was actually black. You know, I mean, obviously he was writing, in the past, but even so. So
yeah.
it's quite conceivable, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean that's quite. I mean, I'm not aware of many black novelists from that particular era, so that seems quite extraordinary. And and obviously, so this is I'm kind of watching it in that kind of Bridgerton kind of way of like the race isn't an issue, and it's just like a version of the story where anyone from anywhere can be in it basically, although it is mainly a white British cast in a French setting novel. That one of them is French, which is a bit sort of throws you a bit. But for the most part, I thought, despite having, it's clearly shot on a really low budget. I was a bit worried from the opening. The last adaptation that we'd seen that was shot on a very limited budget was Steve Lawson's Fourth Musketeer, which I do like his films generally, but that one just didn't quite work for me. I really like this overall. I thought I was really kind of swept up in it. I don't know how accurate it is to the story of the book or previous adaptations, but I thought the whole storyline sort of flowed really well. The script seems really decent. Again, that could be because the dialogue has come from the book itself. I'm not sure, or the translation of the book, I should say. The James Cosmo adds a little. Is probably the most heavyweight member of the cast as Cardinal Richelieu.
Was he dubbed? Was that?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, no, that was his voice.
Yeah. I'm always used to him doing like a Scottish accent. So.
I think he does all sorts, doesn't he? Yeah. So he's not doing a French accent here, but he's sort of doing. But
he's good. Yeah.
Nobleman sort of.
I mean, you think in the past of like other Cardinal Richelieus. I mean, we've had Charlton Heston in the Richard Lester ones. We've had Tim Curry, I think, in the Disney one. Can't remember who was in the others, but I thought James Cosmo, why not? And I thought he was really good.
Yeah, I thought the action scenes and stuff, that was one of the problems with the Fourth Musketeer. I just didn't think the action scenes were strong enough. Here, there's some pretty decent, swordplay. The characterization is really good. The camaraderie and stuff. I mean, the whole setup at the original in the early scenes of he goes into the bar and he's looking for someone, and he's actually trying to find the Three Musketeers, and wouldn't you know it, he gets into conflict with all three of them, and then they have to meet up the bar outside or something. I don't know if that's in the book or it's just a contrivance here.
It is. It's one of the main, one of the first sort of parts of the book is the fact that he upsets all three of them, and ends up sort of like scheduling a duel like one after the other. And of course
okay. So that is accurate. So yeah, it's the but once the characters are established and they're on their journey and stuff, I thought I didn't have a problem. I was quite engaged with it and drawn into it and really interested. And although films of this era, the sort of fantasy adventure, or not fantasy, but this kind of adventure story from bygone, this is the sort of thing that, yes, they do make them now occasionally. Like you say, there's a upcoming French adaptation, and they also did the Paul W.S. sort of more steampunky sort of version, I guess. The heightened
reality version.
But really, you've got to go back to sort of the 2000s, I think, or before, like when Mask of Zorro and The Man in the Iron Mask and all that were kind of around. And these are the kind of movies that, no, they actually don't make many of these anymore. It's more, it's much more contemporary stories, or sci-fi or horror, a lot of horror obviously, but sort of period adventure. There's something quite quaint and old-fashioned and sort of enjoyable about this, I think, for people who, it stands out, I think, from other adventures, because it's an adaptation of the Three Musketeers that's not trying to be something else. The Asylum did one where they tried to make it all contemporary and all about guns and stuff, which there've been various different attempts to contemporize it, and I think that's the one thing that's quite interesting here is, yes, the race of the lead actor is probably the most notable thing about it, the most contemporary thing about it, but everything else is very old-fashioned.
Absolutely. I did enjoy it. I mean, I've seen loads. I've read the book. A big fan of the book as it goes. Obviously, they did cut stuff out, the whole plot about the necklace and the Duke of Buckingham and that sort of stuff.
Oh, they only had an hour and a half, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. They only had an hour and a half. They cut it down. But they kept the main plot of or came up with their own plot about this sort of assassinating the king. And I thought they did a good job of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I thought Malachi Puller-Latchman as D'Artagnan was really good. He's got a bit of a John Boyega sort of vibe about him. He was also in the film Hounded, which I keep meaning to see, with Samantha Bond, I think. I didn't quite catch that one last year, but yeah, I thought he was good. This is the first time I've seen him. He was also in a film called Shark Bait, which I think is an upcoming. I think that's another. Sorry, Shark Bait. Yeah, that's the James Gunn movie. Yeah, no, so I have seen him in something before. I didn't put the dots together. But no, he was. So he was in that, and it was just because the poster I was looking at on IMDb, it's a completely different poster to the one I'm familiar with. So there are so many films called Shark whatever. I didn't pick out that it was the same movie, but so I'm definitely interested to. I mean, he hasn't done that many films. He's been sort of working his way up in various shorts and EastEnders and stuff like that. So he's clearly the last couple of years his career is sort of climbing up a bit. And this is not a very big budget movie, but it's a good showcase, I think, for his talents. And I think the rest of the cast did a really good job as well. And people who like old-fashioned adventure films will really enjoy this, I think.
Absolutely. If you're a fan of the Musketeers and that sort of thing, definitely check this out. How are you going to score it, Rich?
I'll give it a 7.
Yep. 2 7s for the Three Musketeers. Go check it out. Our next review is The Nameless Days. On the border between the United States and Mexico, once every 20 years, there are days that locals call timelessness. At this time, the gods to whom the ancient Aztec tribe made sacrifices descend to Earth to take human souls. There was a film, guys, we reviewed last year with Frank Grillo, where he was the owner of a ranch, and his son ended up killing an immigrant, and he goes on a sort of quest. I was actually reminded of that, especially of the character that Frank Grillo played in that film, with the girl's dad in this, because it was that sort of same situation, but he got two people sort of dealing with it in very different ways. But we learn why as the film goes on. A dad sort of has a very sort of deep-seated grudge against the sort of Mexicans coming across the border illegally and that sort of thing. And then we sort of find out why, and he has this sort of act of contrition towards the end. But I found this film to be very slight overall. It is a very one-note film, to be honest. There's a threat, and the people trying to get out of the way of that threat, and that's basically it, unfortunately. Having said that, it is sort of quite nicely shot, and I did like the ending. But Steve, what did you make of Steve, what did you make of the
Yeah.
Nameless Days?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with the word slight. It's not very scary, but I did like the actual human participation. The characters with each other. I thought them scenes worked really well. It reminded me of something like Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah.
Where, because you say, well, you can't kill something that's already dead.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like, well, you can't. All you can do is run away or stay away from whatever it is until the is it 5 days are up or something,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And that always takes out a bit of, I don't know, a bit of tension to me. It just, well, it's just going to come back again in 20 years or 25 years or whatever it is. There's no way it can be defeated, if you know what I mean. So whenever something like that happens in a film, it always kind of turns me off anyway. But that said, I love the ending. What happens, I thought was great because it did throw me. I didn't expect it, to be fair. And again, yeah, it's very slight. I mean, the bit that got me is when they go around to like a dad's mates.
Yeah.
And as soon as he says something like demonic, he's like, right, yeah, we're on it. There's no arguing with no, you're talking shite, don't talk daft. Why are you thinking that? He's straight, right, yeah, fair enough. Let's go. Let's find out.
That's what I liked about it, because he's seen shit. He's been around the world. He's done things. He knows people who've done things. So he's a bit more sort of open-minded about it, which I liked.
But the dad's more level-headed, shall we say? He's like, yeah, whatever.
It's immigrants.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, he tried. I presume he's trying to go for an analogy against that, But slight is the word I'd use, because it's not scary enough. It's not really gory enough as well, to be fair. I mean, I'm not a gore hound, as you know, but there's probably no blood in it. Literally, I don't think
they talk about it more than they show it.
Yeah.
Having said that, the actual sort of the makeup design of the main sort of creature, the demon, I thought that was pretty good.
It's not bad. I mean, but you don't really see it right at the end. True. Really. Yeah. Which I do normally kind of like. It gives you that bit of suspense, but with this, it doesn't build any tension, doesn't build any suspense. So I think that kind of let it down as well.
I think I don't know. I mean, certain films like this, where they don't have a particularly large cast, or so either they're going to kill everyone off, so you just got one person left at the end of the film, for the whole half of the film or something, or or you're not going to sort of see many people getting bumped off until right towards the end. So there is a bit of that as well. But overall, I mean, it was nicely shot, I have to say. Some good night photography, and that ending, on top of the mountain, I thought that was really well shot. Breaking dawn and everything. I thought that worked really well. So there's definitely positives here, but it's a bit throwaway, I think. As you say, that maybe there's a bit of sort of a metaphor for the crisis of the border, or say crisis. I mean, there isn't a crisis, but there you go. There's that, but overall, for an international audience, I think it just comes across as being a bit throwaway overall.
Yeah.
How are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 6.
Yeah, it's definitely a 6. 2 6s for the Nameless Days. Go check it out. Our next review is The Irish Mob. This tells the story of crime boss Val Fagan and the dark world of gangland Dublin. Fagan leads a violent, bloody, and ruthless gang who are the main target of Garda detectives after an audacious cash depot robbery. I'll give this thing one, just to start off with. It's got a really snazzy opening credit sequence, which I was quite taken with. I thought, okay, that's a good start. I don't know. This wasn't ruthless enough for me. It wasn't. It's a violent, bloody, and ruthless gang. They're not violent and bloody enough or ruthless enough, really. You know what I mean? This really pales against something like the Rise of the Foot Soldier series or something like that. That's what it's aiming for, I guess. But it's just not really on that level.
It's a bit toothless, isn't it? Really.
Mm.
But I did enjoy it. To be fair, it was a bit more accomplished than what I was expecting. The budget isn't massive, you can tell, but I was really. I don't know why. I just thought, no, this is gonna look and be really, really cheap, and it wasn't. I thought the actual camera work was pretty damn good. I'd say the only one that the thing that really let it down, I think, was the performance of the main Garda, the Liz Delahunt.
Oh yeah.
I didn't like her performance at all. I thought she was just wooden and it was underplayed. But everyone else I really enjoyed. And the thing is, with things like this, I know it's a bit Goodfellas here, obviously, but he's a prick. He's an arsehole. And and there's a scene about halfway through that really, really confirms it. And it just makes you kind of lose respect for the character in a way,
Yeah.
But I think that's what it's supposed to be doing. And I was very, very surprised with the ending, to be fair. And what actually happens. And that took me by surprise and kind of wrapped it up quite neatly, to be fair, because sometimes like this, it can be not meandering, but it's left quite open. But with this, it really wasn't. And to be fair, it's only about 80 minutes.
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
And again, which I was quite surprised, because I thought it could be quite a sprawling mess in a way, but it's not. It's actually quite tight and concise, and better than I thought it was going to be. To be fair, I don't think the name helps it as well.
Yeah, they manage to sort of for the most part steer clear of the IRA and things like that as well. This is just organised crime, basically. I do have an issue with the voiceover narration. Because it's written like what's his face from who's the guy who wrote the Da Vinci Code?
Oh, Dan Brown.
Dan Brown, yeah. It reads like that. I mean, I don't know if you ever read any Dan Brown stuff. He writes chapters which are like 2 to 3 pages long. And they always end with something like, little did he realize that was going to come in useful later on, and there's a bit of that in the voiceover, which to try and sort of like, I've got to hang on a little bit longer to sort of see what he's talking about. It's really annoying. But I agree with you in that it was relatively compelling. There was enough going on to sort of keep you watching, to sort of see if they're going to get away with stuff or how they're going to, because the main guy, Val Fagan, his bosses are putting pressure on him to raise money because the whole organization lost a shipment of cocaine and they need to buy more, obviously, or they're going to run out. So it was interesting, on that level. And as you say, you got the cops sort of coming from them from the other side. So there was a lot of that, and the budget constraints didn't show through too much either. So yeah, it's just, nobody seemed to be as ruthless and as nasty as they tell you they are. I think that's basically the only real issue I've got is, but other than that, especially the Irish one, I suppose, thinking there's going to be a bit more to it, but no. Anyway, how are you going to score this one?
I'll give it a 7.
Well, I'm going for a 6 on this one. So a 6 and a 7 for the Irish Mob. Go check it out. Our next review is CONDOR'S NEST. A decade after the fall of Nazi Germany, an American aviator travels across South America in search of war criminals and encounters more than he bargained for. I was quite surprised with this one, Rich. The initial press pack that we received had a very sort of, typical sort of DVD artwork, which made this look like it was yet another World War II sort of war movie, which a couple of years ago we were kind of inundated with, weren't we? One out every week. So I was quite surprised that this turned out to be something completely different. I mean, it starts off in World War II in 1944 with this American bomber being shot down in France, but then events move forward. And we have our sort of main guy who's in sort of, he starts off in Argentina, I think it is, looking for a particular sort of lieutenant in the SS, played by Arnold Vosloo, which I thought was awesome. And he ends up in this sort of interesting sort of weird sort of triangle with a member of Mossad and another Nazi who has managed to sort of convince him that he can help him get his target if he escorts him into is it Bolivia? I can't remember. Uruguay, I think it is. Was it Bolivia?
Well, I think it's Paraguay.
Paraguay, there you go, the other one. And yeah, I really enjoyed this, I must admit. It builds quite nicely. There's a lot going on, some good action scenes, and this interesting sort of characterization of this guy sort of stuck between doing the right thing and doing what's personal. How did you find it?
Yeah, I liked it as well. It does say, look like from the poster that they've used over here, it's your generic soldier looking, with a back turned to the camera kind of thing. There was one particular film that we talked about in the past where essentially the film had been released like 3 times and they changed the cover, but it was always that same basic image formation, and we've seen it time and time again. So I was going in thinking this was generic World War II movie, and yes, it is a World War II movie, but it's a post World War II movie. It's more of a dealing with the aftermath kind of, sort of the holdover, the need for revenge and sort of to get justice following the the restoration of sanity. The film itself, it again a bit like the Three Musketeers one, very low budget, not really, some of it's not really my cup of tea, but I was very drawn into it. I was very engaged with the performances and the storyline. I thought the whole the intrigues and stuff played really well. I was quite it's kind of some of the twists and turns maybe a bit obvious, but the film does change as it moves on, and I think it's interesting, but it's also a little bit to the detriment that there are the main characters who we're focusing on we leave for quite a significant amount of time to spend time with the villains, which sort of threw me a bit. You know, they're like having big long. I mean, we've seen it a little bit as board meetings or, you know, gatherings, but these scenes are like really long, and there's some of them are like one after another. So it's only really it's in that sort of third act that it sort of goes a bit in two different directions, and the main characters themselves, who sort of come together, they sort of go off to conclude their stories at different points. So it's a bit disjointed come the end. But I thought I was really interested in the characters, and I like the story, the sort of the idea that it posits, you know, that it hooks its hat on as the story progresses. I thought was an interesting one. It's quite possibly been done in other movies, but it wasn't something that sort of sprang to mind. It seemed quite a bold idea to be running with, which a little bit different to some of the other. So let's say a film might posit, you know, what happens if Hitler didn't die in the bunker. Well, this does a similar kind of thing, but with a different sort of situation. We've also got, now this was the other thing that really impressed me, is a lot of it is in German. Now the easy way out with a lot of these American, I think this is an American made wartime story or post-war, you know, war movie. Let's call it a war movie for argument's sake. So is to shoot everything in English. But no, what we've got is significant amounts of the dialogue is in German. And also not just, I mean, there's like whole scenes of people just talking German, which I was really impressed by, because that sort of seemed to me that they were sort of trying to go the extra mile with this, and not make it a more of an authentic experience, which I thought worked well. We've got some surprise appearances, or surprise depending on you see him on the credits. But Bruce Davison is in one of the scenes. I only spotted him in one scene, and he barely has anything to do. But then he says something in German, and I'm pretty sure that's the only bit he's got in the film. But I thought that was quite odd. Sort of made it stand out a bit. There's a few other people in. Michael Ironside turns up as a Russian. He's doing an accent, but he's being Michael Ironside, which is fine. But who else have we got in there? Oh yeah, you said Arnold Vosloo, who's, you know, been around, done all sorts of roles over the years. He's been doing a lot more high profile stuff in his native South Africa lately. A lot of it going to Netflix and stuff like that. So interesting to see him in another English language role. I haven't seen him, you know, because he sort of paid his dues in a lot of this stuff back in the Christ. You go all the way back to what Hard Target. Yeah. I mean, and obviously was the main villain in The Mummy and stuff. He's always really, he did the Darkman sequels. That's sort of his DTV sort of heritage. He's great. He brings that same. I mean, he pretty much only plays the same kind of performance, but it's always always a compelling one. And there was a guy from Lost, Jorge Garcia, in there somewhere, but I honestly didn't, until I saw his name in the credits. I was like, I did not notice him in it at all. I don't know if it was a blink and you'll miss it, but they've got a good cast in this. I mean, it must be said. I say most of the principals are unknowns, but there's some really solid support.
Yeah, I thought this was very enjoyable. I'd put this alongside another war film we covered last year called The Burial, which I thought.
See, I like this more than Burial. I wasn't fussed on The Burial.
I like.
But yes, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's a similar sort of budget. Similar sort of amount of action and stuff. I think they would play quite favourably together. As a sort of double bill. And on that note, Rich, how are you going to score Condor's Nest?
I am good because it went the extra mile. I think I'm going to give it an 8. And I would say another film to compare it to, a film made with a lot more money, was Anthropoid, which was also a kind of film dealing with sort of after the war. Going seeking.
Anthropoid is actually set during the war.
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of something else then. I apologise. Maybe I'm thinking of one of the other films, another film. Anyway,
it's a good shot. It's good film.
Yeah, Anthropoid's good. Yeah, but sorry, not the film I was thinking of.
Okay, I'm going to join you on an 8. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Very good film. Certainly not the film I expected it to be, but yeah, definitely worth checking out. 2 8s for Condor's Nest. Go check it out. Our next review is Dead Bride. After her father's death, Alison, her partner Richard, and their baby return to her childhood home. That's brief. Thanks, IMDb, for that. Because what she finds out is what killed her father and is still lurking around the property is basically the ghost of her dead grandmother, I believe. This is an Italian film which has been redubbed into English. And I must admit, it surprised me on certain levels. The opening sort of prologue was actually genuinely creepy. I thought that actually worked really, really well. The thing with the shadow in the attic when he's sort of shining his torch, I thought that was excellent. I've seen that done before in a film called The Pact 2, but it works really, really well. Really enjoyed that. There's some really good creepy stuff all the way through. There is one, I say one, I mean, the film does sort of lurch around a bit in terms of sort of logic and things, it has to be said. But the bit which sort of, I must admit, sort of threw me out of the film a bit was when Alison convinces the same priest who had tried to exorcise her mum to help her out, and eventually goes, yeah, okay, I'll help you out, I'll see you in the morning. And then, he gets accosted by the ghost on the way home. I was like, okay, so this is supposed to be a curse about her, and yet it's branching out. It's doing these side. It's basically doing side quests. You know what I mean? It's like, well, this is where the curse is, but yeah, well, maybe if I do a couple of side quests, it might help. So that threw me. But even so, that whole sequence I thought was still very good. There's a lot to like here. It does sort of lose its way a few times, and I did get a bit confused when Dave turned up, and when we get these flashbacks to it, and there's somebody else who looks a lot like Dave in the flashbacks. It was like, oh, I see. But overall, there's a lot to like here, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few bits, like you said, that don't work. I mean, to me, it's like Italian Insidious, basically.
Yeah, in fact, they do the Insidious bit, don't they? With the demon hiding behind somebody else's head, sort of thing, so they can just sort of that bit.
Yeah, and then when she goes into like the demon world or whatever, in at the end. I mean, like I said, that bit started off really effective. Where she's in the coffin and such and stuff like that, and yeah, some of it works, some of it doesn't. I mean, the bit that really was the bit with the baby at first, when she picks him up and it's clearly a doll. It's the worst fake baby since American Sniper, and that kind of like really took me out of it at that point for a bit. And yeah, the dubbing's not great as well, I'll be honest. It's a bit like the house on the cliff last week.
Oh yeah,
really,
very
terrible.
Very obviously dubbed.
Yeah. It's just subtitle it. It's easier.
Or at least offer the subtitles.
Yeah. Maybe when it's on DVD, you can do. I mean, obviously, it's a link that we've got, so maybe they've just done that, as it were. But yeah, it's peaks and troughs in this one. There's some really good bits, and then there's some bits that don't really make sense or don't work. Like a lot of the stuff.
I was never completely. I was never completely understood why her wasn't a mum? Was it a mum who got
Yeah.
murdered?
No, it was
It was a grandmother, wasn't it? He got murdered.
I don't think it was a grandma. I think it was a granddad's first wife.
That's right. Yeah.
Who then remarried and was a grandma.
Yeah. But he presumably he had murdered her or something. But
yeah,
the reason why was not clear
No.
at all.
No.
You know what kicked it all off in the first place. But there you go.
No.
But yeah, I must admit I was pleasantly surprised by this. I thought, well, it could be anything, with a title like Dead Bride. So I was surprised to sort of see it was an Italian production for a start. There was some very effective scares in it. A lot of jump scares overall, but some of it was actually quite effective. So yeah, there was a lot of good effort in this one. There were some really weird bits as well. There's a scene where she's with her husband, and the camera's in front of them, and they're just chatting. And the camera they move the camera around to a different position, and they're not saying anything. They just sort of sat staring at the wall. And I was like, okay, we're going to change the shot, and we just want you to stare at the wall and do nothing for 10 seconds. It was, very, very strange why that was left in there. But there you go. Anyway, lots of good stuff here. How are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 6.
It is a 6. The dubbing hurts and is a bit sort of all over, but there is some good, genuine sort of creepy bits in this one for sure. So 2 6s for Dead Bride. Go check it out. Our final main review is The Possessed. Exorcist Jacob Chandler is summoned to uncover the layers of demonic deception at play by his nephew's new girlfriend, Attilee Carlisle. Now, Jacob Chandler is an actual person, and this film is a dramatized version of some of his early cases, believe it or not. We've got John Jarratt, who played Mick Taylor in the Wolf Creek movies, as Jacob Chandler, totally different, character. Who he can perform these what he calls clearings of people's, people, their soul has been clouded by sort of demonic spirits and things like that, and it is very effective. And I always find that this sort of film, films about possession and stuff, a lot of it hangs on how convincing the possessed person is. And they do a pretty decent job here of, a mixture of the way the actor and sort of the makeup design and the voice, the audio, all come together really, really well in this. And it is, for the first half of the film, it is almost like a series of vignettes. It's like he's sort of like, or his mates are explaining to his girlfriend how they got involved in this sort of stuff. So they sort of run through a number of cases before getting around to sort of the main bit, which is about this guy Martin, who is renovating this big house, not realizing that the people who owned it beforehand were in the middle of doing some sort of occult ritual, basically, and he ends up being possessed by this sort of high caste demon. And it's very good. The film that it reminded me most of, I don't know if you've ever seen this, called The Judas Ghost.
No.
Come across that one? It's a British one, and that in itself actually reminded me of Sapphire and Steel. It is a very good sort of like low budget sort of horror movie, and I kind of got a bit of a feel of that with this one. The main character, Jacob Chandler, he's not a priest. He's kind of like one of these sort of well-being sort of health guys. Really, that he runs a sort of health clinic, and that's how he got involved in this sort of stuff. And when people sort of like going to him like, well, why is this happening? He's like, well, I don't fucking know. I haven't got a clue. I'm just trying to deal with it as best as I can. And it's quite refreshing on, on that sort of level. I really did like this. It is quite a sort of charming sort of film, and the way it ends as well is quite enigmatic. It's quite open ended. It leaves room for other stuff to happen. And it also, over the end credits, it's got these little clips of the actual guy, Jacob Chandler, doing his exorcisms and things like that, which is quite useful. He's sort of clearings, as it say. But yeah, the effects are pretty good. Apart from the typical sort of demonic smoke kind of thing that we always see in these sort of things, but the rest of it, the actual sort of makeup effects, I thought were pretty good. Yeah, I really did like this. So that's why I'm giving this an 8 out of 10. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is Dragon Cop. Hong Kong police detectives Dragon Yen and Cynthia Chan are about to bust a drug case involving Mr. Chow's triad and American criminal John Rickman. But they will be trapped by Chow's men and will have no choice but to fight to stay alive. Okay, so this is by the Mays brothers, who we've covered before, because they are awesome. And yeah, this is a brilliant tribute to the 80s Hong Kong style. We get two different styles of Hong Kong action in this one. We get the Yen Wei Ping style of sort of, Donnie Yen and Michelle Yeoh kind of stuff, from the likes of, well, loads of stuff, but the Tiger Cage 2 is definitely a touchstone in this. And then we get the sort of the more sort of John Woo stuff towards the end, with that sort of shootout. Yeah, I absolutely love this. There's lots of touchstones in this. There's a poster from Police Story in the commissioner's office, which is a good little Easter egg. The set design, it reminded me of so many films, like Dragons Forever and all that sort of stuff. It just works really, really well. Steve?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. The Mays brothers. Now, what of theirs have we seen before?
Did you watch Cyborg Deadly Machine with us?
Yes, I thought it was.
Yeah, so that's probably their longest form project. They mainly do short films and stuff, and that was 50 minutes long. That's probably the best example for listeners to sort of go and see what their style is and what they're capable of. That's probably the best. That's one of their best pieces of work, I would say. But they also do lots of lots of comedy shorts and spoofs and very retro styling stuff, which is what they've gone for here.
Yeah. But yeah, I like the style, the 80s throwback style. Even with the dubbing on this, it works in that kind of way. And yeah, I actually get a bit of heart in there as well, especially what happens about half the way through, which came out of nowhere, really,
As it would in Hong Kong action movies at the time.
Yeah. And then, even like the end credits scene as well, introducing the sequel, shall we say. Overall, just really, really enjoyed it.
So, Rich, I know you've had your eye on this for a while. You've been waiting for it to be released. Did it live up to the hype?
Yes, to an extent. I think it's not the best. I have preferred some things like Cyborg Deadly Machine. I think it's a very good pastiche. It's more than just a fight scene. I mean, it's barely more than fight scene. I mean, it is mostly an action sequence, but with a bit of setup, and there's a slight location change for the last scene. But it's a good teaser for what they're trying to do is get a more ambitious project off the ground off the back of this. So I think in that sense it works really well. But in terms of, I mean, they're masters of pastiche. The style, the aesthetic is completely on point. The music's great. There's a great sort of a synthy pop song called Rise of the Dragon by Hollow Flash, which is like the theme of the film, which is on par with some of the best that we've had, like the music in Kung Fury and stuff, for example. Which what I find is quite interesting is a lot of this stuff is coming out of France. You know, the French in particular seem to love these kind of 80s movies. So not just the Maze Brothers, but also we had the Commando Ninja.
Yeah.
Film.
Kind of thing Roycart.
Oh, Godfrey Roycart.
Was he French?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But we've all say Commando Ninja is probably one of the closest relations to this, and that as well had a short film called Hopkins, which was released to build interest for Commando Ninja 2, getting sort of because it's all tied in with Kickstarter and stuff. For me, the Hong Kong homage kind of thing, my favorite film to do that has been Duty Out of Line, which was it last year or 2 years ago now? But I thought that's just a single fight scene kind of sequence, but I thought that got me. I was more interested in that. Here it's kind of a bit more typical, a bit more conventional, I would say. I think there was some unusual sort of comic aspects or whatever of that other film, but this is, buddy, not buddy cops, but like a couple of cops in a situation fighting. It's very straightforward. I think the resulting Dragon Cop 2 could be a lot bigger in scale, and that from say there's a pitch video at the end of the film, which gives an idea of a sort of grander vision, which is why they need the crowdfunding support, because they funded the Dragon Cop film themselves, but they need more money from the audience to try and tell the bigger story, something more like Cyborg Deadly Machine. So the music's really good, the aesthetics are good. I think if you like things like Commando Ninja and even the films by the RKSS team who did film-wise, they went on to do Turbo Kid, but they made a lot of, again, sort of pastiche short films about ninja, sort of parodying ninja movies and stuff. There's a lot of shorts out there by them. So if there's a lot out there to explore if you like movies with that sort of 80s aesthetic, synth music or whatever. The French have got you covered, essentially, and this is another great example of that. But it's not the best, but it's really good, and it does. I'm always really excited to see what they've got coming next, and I think if they can get the funding, I think we're going to have a really good film.
I think this is almost pitch perfect, to be honest, guys. I mean, I love that sort of period of Hong Kong action, and I think they nailed it. Basically, I mean, okay, it is what it is, but I think the dubbing, the dialogue I thought was great. With the sort of the American characters, I thought were great. It really worked for me overall. So,
well, what you're saying, the thing about the dubbing is that's part of the aesthetic. There is there is a French version, but I haven't watched it, but I'm almost certain the French version is probably dubbed into French, because they've made. I mean, all the Hong Kong movies of that time were all dubbed. They didn't record sound for most in most cases when they were making it. It was all added on afterwards. So that adds to the style, and so they've recreated that, and they purposefully. I mean, Dragon's voice just doesn't really match his character, but that's by design. It's the way we've gone. And obviously for the references that you were saying about earlier, all the character names and stuff are all nods to various people from the Hong Kong royalty sort of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this. We do recommend you check this out. We don't score the shorts. We highly recommend you check out their work. Click on the Maze Brothers YouTube page. Check them out and give serious consideration to maybe contributing to their Kickstarter campaign. After all, Mad Heidi started out in the same sort of way, and look how that turned out. That was absolutely superb. It ended up in our top 10 last year. Maybe we can have Dragon Cop's Revenge hitting our charts as well. So there you go. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Andron. A group of people are plunged into a dark, claustrophobic maze where they must fight to survive as the outside world watches. I wouldn't say it was claustrophobic exactly, IMDb. This is quite an expansive set. In fact, it is one of the high points of the film for me, is sort of the location, which I imagine is some sort of derelict factory or something that they're all running around in. But certainly not claustrophobic in any shape or form. Having said that, Steve, what the hell's going on in this film?
Christ knows. I don't know, it's like a Running Man rip-off set in a warehouse.
There are a lot of touchstones. You could point a cube, you can point to the Hunger Games. Any film where a bunch of people turn up with no memory of how they got there, there's a good handful of those for sure.
I highly recommend Unknown with Jim Caviezel. That's well worth checking out.
That sounds familiar, that one.
It's got Greg Kinnear, a whole bunch of people. They're basically a bunch of people wake up in a warehouse with no memory, and they gradually start to get their memory back. It's a good movie.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah,
anyway,
that's what we've got here, isn't it? A bunch of people wake up. How did they get there? Why are they there?
Yeah.
I've seen it, and I still probably couldn't tell you, to be fair. I think one of the major cock-ups with this is giving Skin from Skunk and Nancy basically all the exposition, and she's a great singer, she's a great artist.
It'd have been brilliant if she could sing it,
Yeah,
it'd have been great if she could sing her
lines
whatsoever. But unfortunately, saying her lines out loud wasn't a good move.
No, to be honest, I thought I was really, really disappointed in this. When you sent the poster, to see, I thought, oh, that's interesting, and I kind of remember seeing the trailer, but yeah, it's all over the place. It doesn't make sense. There's people, I don't know, are they being possessed? Are they being taken over by Alec Baldwin? I mean, Alec Baldwin and Danny Glover are basically sat in a room fucking miles away, just phoning their performances in. They're not even on the set. It's a computer generated set.
Literally phoning them in.
Yeah. And I was really, really disappointed in this, to be fair.
Rich, you have been looking out for this one for a while. It's now turned up on the screening channel on YouTube. Did you make any sense out of this one?
Well, I thought it was maybe me. I've been wanting to see it. It's around various places. So it's on the midnight screening. It's also on Prime and various places. It did have a DVD release, and I thought there's good bits and there's bad bits. But yes, that scene, the big exposition scene, I kind of drifted away from it, so I didn't quite kind of follow that. But I think I got the idea that basically they do a sort of cabin in the woods kind of thing where they take some people and try to do this ritual or something or other, and each person in the group is sort of representative of a group of people in the general public who they've both basically got like an implant or something. Everyone's got it. So if one of the people in the game dies, then those people die, and it ultimately ends up being about some form of population control. but there's all sort of misdirections and sort of lies, and because it's all to do with corporations controlling everyone. And by the time it got to the end, I was a bit like, I'm sorry, what? And I thought maybe that was me. But you guys was coming in and saying what was going on. That's I feel kind of a bit reassured by that. And I just want to go back to what you were saying, Mike, about the location, the sort of really run down industrial sort of location, very classical sort of setting for this kind of stuff. I agree. I thought it was shot really well. I thought they made a lot of it. The CG sets that they do just didn't work at all. There's some horrible green screeny CG sets that just don't work. But all the stuff happening in the maze, I thought was shot really well. There was there's some really nice action as well. There's a guy called Alex Martin who's in the movie, very experienced stuntman. He brings a lot to the table. He's in some of the sort of key moments. The film caught my attention. The reason I've always wanted to watch it, and say it's been several years since it came out. It was made in 2014. I think it came out around 2015, 2016.
Yeah, that's right.
It looks like it's a low budget British movie with Alec Baldwin in it. It's not British. It's a co-production, but it's like if anything, it's Maltese, but the director is Italian, so it's mainly an Italian Maltese production, but with British and Canadian financing as well, I think. So it's kind of a very international movie, but it's still really weird to see Michelle Ryan from EastEnders and Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin in a low budget movie like this is quite novel. He actually doesn't do this kind of stuff generally. I mean, he's starred in things of varying quality, but he usually, I mean, this was the same year he did his first Mission Impossible film, I believe. And he was also sort of doing TV stuff and whatnot, and he's always quite a dignified actor, and they've kind of roped him into this in a role in which he's basically shot essentially by himself in a really big room with a table, and the film opens with a shot of it opens with this well, okay, I'm going to go back to the beginning. So it opens with this sort of unusual sort of graphic sort of thing of like something historical, looking over at the maze, I guess. But then the voiceover is like talking about like a TV show and like the redemption games and whatever. And I'm like, these two things don't really match to me. And then it cuts to Alec Baldwin just sort of looking out a window. And I was like, okay, not sure I gather what's going on at this point. And it kind of doesn't really clarify much to there. Danny Glover comes in as well. But yeah, Alec Baldwin is just kind of playing a puppet master kind of character. Sort of pulling the strings of what's going on and trying to rig the game, and then you see some stuff where he's like doing some TV. It's a bit of a Death Race 2000 and all that sort of stuff, kind of satire. Well, not satire, it's not really satirical, but they're trying to do this cold Running Man again. What you guys mentioned is probably a better example, but on a really low budget. But some of it looks really decent, but a lot of it doesn't, and it is that kind of weird meld. Now, Michelle Ryan, I was thinking, oh, that's quite interesting. She's in it, but she doesn't really have much to do. Okay, they do a little bit with her at the end, but I was looking at her IMDb, and her career really sort of tailed off, unfortunately. I mean, I always think of her as being quite successful, but she came off of EastEnders. She got the Bionic Woman, which was a massive break, but then got cancelled after like 9 episodes, and her career kind of never really reached that height again. And she's kind of turned up in films of various things, but nothing particularly high profile. And it wasn't until sort of checking this out and looking at her IMDb that I realized that was the case. She's knocking around, but it essentially the glory days are unfortunately past. But she's fine in this. Everyone's got a skin. I like, and that was the other thing that really interested me. I was like, that skin on the cover. I was like, what? And she's, like you say, she's not an actress. She doesn't really do much acting. And so that really novel. I thought, you've got Alec Baldwin, you've got Skin from Skunk and Nancy, you got Michelle Ryan, you've got the I'm not going to get her name, but we watched the film Black Medicine, which was really good, starring Antonia Campbell Hughes, and I was watching this and I was thinking, I recognize her from something, and I looked it up and that's what it was from. So the cast is pretty solid. I mean, say we've got this Alex Martin guy. The cast is pretty solid, Danny Glover and everything, but the story is too confusing. The CGI, sets, whatever you want to call them, background, or a bit like what these days they would be like. The high end version is like Volume and the Mandalorian and all that sort of stuff, but this is like a few years ago when they were just doing it on a cheap green screen and it just didn't come off. That doesn't really work. I think overall it's a curio, because how many Maltese sci-fi dystopia movies featuring Alec Baldwin are there? But it's just it's well deserving of its sort of what's the word?
Obscurity.
What's it called? Obscurity. Yeah, that's exactly the word I'm looking for. It's quite deserving of its obscurity.
Yeah, there's loads of films of this ilk, I think, knocking around.
Hunger Games, blah blah blah.
Yeah, what's that other one? Something Maze, the Maze Runner.
Oh, the Maze Runner.
Trilogy and things like that. But there you go. It isn't. Yeah, there is an oddity. There are some compelling reasons to watch it if you come across it, for sure. It is a curio, but at the same time, you'll watch it and go, why haven't I heard this before? And then you watch it and go, that's why. Well, we don't.
Alec Baldwin is at least in it quite a bit. He does turn up quite a lot in the movie. But it is
Danny Glover
kind of
less so, I think. But
yeah, Danny Glover's only got like 3 scenes, I think. But I didn't understand what was happening with Danny Glover and that girl.
No idea.
What? Because he was supposed to be like the mayor of the city or something, the guy in charge of the city. And then I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think they were trying to lead in at the end to because there's that. Oh, that's the thing. There's the mid-credits scenes. Did you see those?
Oh no.
No, probably not.
It's almost like because there's a whole bit with it. Well, there's this character, and who's quite. It seems there's some sort of importance to her, and she dies, right? And then it's like, oh, she wasn't dead after all. I was like, what? I don't know what's going on.
They kind of did that with that other character right at the end of the film, didn't they? When he suddenly wakes up and you go, okay.
Yeah. Well, that was it.
Again.
Yeah, there was that one. Yeah, they do that basically. Yeah, again. And,
the whole thing was I was like, oh, you think this is the reality? But actually, no, this is all just a CGI composite or something. And they strip it all away. And it's like, and then you thought this was the reality. Well, no, this isn't the reality either. It's like a dream within a dream within a dream kind of thing.
Yes, I didn't really get where they were going. But yeah, if you want to watch a film where people wake up in a science fiction sort of environment, don't know where they are and try to figure it out, whatever, go and watch Cube, I would say.
Yeah,
but Cube is at the top. I mean, there's loads. I mean, Roll Wren's done a couple of films like this. There's all sorts. But anyway. Okay, we don't score these. We don't score the throwbacks, but we kind of, sometimes recommend you go and check them out. This one may tickle your fancy. But yeah, you can find it on numerous platforms for free. We mentioned the midnight screening. It's also on Amazon Prime, and you probably pick it up on a couple of other YouTube channels as well. That is the end of this week's show. So thanks to Rich and Steve for joining me. We had a bit of a slog through this week. Lots of stuff to get through. But most of it was of a decent quality. I really did like Bad City. Condor's Nest was a good second place for me. And then The Possessed and Dead Bride both certainly had their merits. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest, and don't forget to check out the Short Shots, where Rich will curate a new short film every evening around about 8 o'clock. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.